Hi, everyone. Welcome to the speaker series today. Um, Really quickly, we're going to introduce the panelists today, which is me, Taylor, and Jade. So my name is Adana Ogu. My pronouns are she, her. I am BSU co-president at Monta Vista. I was also a panelist for the first speaker series. I'm also a choir section leader at Monta Vista and a member of the Equity Club. I'm a senior this year, and next year I will be attending St. Mary's College in Moraga, and I will be majoring in biology. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade. I'm currently a junior at Doherty Valley High School. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm extremely interested in politics, social issues, local government, all of those. Particularly, I'm really passionate about investigative journalism intersecting with those issues. I'm currently the opinions editor for the Wildcat Tribune, Doherty Valley's newspaper, and I know there are a few people probably watching this from our newspaper as well to cover it. So I love the Tribune, the family, and I love to keep writing about social issues that I'm passionate about. And I'm also a part of speech and debate as well as Model UN at my school. And I've been a part of those clubs for all of high school. So also got a lot of experience learning about different political issues in those clubs as well. So very excited to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Dates. I am a senior at San Ramon Valley High School, and my pronouns are she, her. I am ASB president at San Ramon, and I am also a co-founder and co-president of the Student Equity Club with Anisha Patel, who's also on this call. I am very active politically, socially on social issues and things like that. I was lucky enough to organize a voter registration campaign in the fall and register and pre-register over 150 students. So that was awesome. And I am always looking for new ways to get youth to be civically engaged. So I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to introduce Jasmine Jones, who is our lovely guest speaker for today. And so I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit about her background, and then Jasmine will tell everyone about her story. So Jasmine Jones is a political operative with over a decade of experience in organizing, fundraising, campaign, and project management. She has a very strong passion for leadership and is an advocate for civic engagement. She has worked on numerous local, state, and federal campaigns across the country and was recently the national organizing director at Rock the Vote during the 2020 presidential election, where she managed the first ever ambassador program, mobilizing Gen Z and millennials across the country to vote. She has also been featured in Vogue magazine, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. And she's a motivated team leader and trainer with expertise in development of political and civic endeavors, including diversity and inclusion. Jasmine is a Southern Belle growing up in Lithonia, Georgia, by way of Wilmington, North Carolina. She earned her bachelor's in political science and international relations from Albany State University. And in her spare time, she volunteers in her community and is a member of several organizations. Finally, she's also an old soul with a huge personality and a lover of R&B. So welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you, Jade, and thank you guys for just being here and having me here today. I'm so excited to be talking to you guys. I want it to be a fun experience, so feel free to drop any question you have in the chat for our student moderators to look out for them. We want to keep it fresh and exciting, so hope everyone is having a great Tuesday. I wanted to share a little bit about my background. As Jade mentioned, I am a Southern girl by way of Wilmington, North Carolina, born there and raised in Lithonia, Georgia. And so I grew up in the South. A lot of different experiences with Southern culture, Southern food, Southern hospitality, and it motivated me to really be a people person. My great grandmother was Native American, always welcoming family and friends to her house, never meeting a stranger. And I think I got it from her. It is a domino effect from her, from my grandmother to my mom and to me. I think it's growing up in a Southern culture. We always embrace individuality. We always embrace just being people, and it's embracing everyone's story and from there, it kind of adapted me to do the same in my career. My father, he was incarcerated for 14 years in the federal prison system. And from there, it always kind of gave me a reason to be active in my community, always trying to answer those questions that I always used to ask that never got answered, and trying to figure out the answers to it, if that makes sense. So when it came to restoration of rights, that's what kind of molded me into shaping me being a volunteer, because I always wanted to know answers about how do I get my dad out of prison. And from there, it was always a matter of being a leader, always trying to volunteer somewhere. My mother was a single parent for a long period of time, and she always had us do something. And my high school alma mater, Middle Grove High School in Lithonia, Georgia, the motto was, you must do something. It was a fresh high school. We were the first graduating class in 2008. And it molded us to be prepared. You have to do something. No matter what it is, you have to be active in finding out what you want to do. So that's either going to college, find a trade, join the military, starting your own business, being an entrepreneur, just making something happen for yourself. And to this day, I love my high school for just giving me, and not only myself, but other leaders within my class, that motivation to inspire to do anything that we want to do. And from childhood, I grew up in a very traditional household, and just really principles and values of treating people with kindness and respect, no matter if they treat you differently. And from there, I just always wanted to figure out what was my passion, what was my purpose, what's going to be my legacy when I leave this earth and go on to paradise. And from there, it was leadership. So like I mentioned, my mom had us, I was in band, I was a cheerleader, I was dance, I tried to do the piano, it didn't work out. I ended up playing saxophone and marching band. That was my niche. Clarinet, bass clarinet. I still want to learn to play piano, but I think so many other talented people, you guys, I mean, it's beyond me now. But I was always trying to do something. Hall monitor, prom queen, my student ambassador in college. I was always molding to be active and just wanting to learn more about my community. And from there, I went to college. I'm a proud graduate of Albany State University. It is a small gym in Southwest Georgia. The HBCU experience, Historical Black College, is one I would never forget. And Albany was one of the cities that was the birth of the civil rights movement. To this day, there are a lot of areas in Albany where it is white only and Black only. And even though they may not have the signs, people tell you, don't go here, don't go there at a certain period of time. So it's always been an adapt of what it means to bring in more diversity and inclusiveness in areas that have always been its same level for so many years. And I would never regret being in college. I had the best time. I made some of my fondest memories and great friends, even still keeping up to this day. And from college, I developed my leadership abilities. I think it was one of our panelists, I'm not sure if it was Jade or I'm not sure, so I'm sorry, but someone mentioned it was being a biology major, and I was once a biology major. It didn't work out. And my mom was mad. I called her. I was actually taking a class in poli-sci as a class to take my sophomore year of school. I fell in love with political science. Always wanted to be a leader, but I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I fell in love with it so fast. I actually asked the professor that day, like, how can I change my major? Like, I feel like this is what I want to do. My mom was very upset. My mom didn't talk to me for like 3 months. Thanksgiving came. I would come home from school, come home from college, and she was always mean to me. She just always was like not really trying to interact because she was so upset that I changed my major. And now she sees when I'm following my passion and my purpose, which I'll explain later, but now she sees me in a whole different light, and she loves to brag about her kids about, oh, my kids found their passion, they found their purpose, and now she's all happy. But I learned when I was in undergrad to really find your niche. And I'm saying this to say, even if you go into school knowing your major, if you go to college not knowing, that's okay too. That part in your collegiate career is for you to find your niche. It is to find your true self and find your passion. So I'm just saying that as from one who had experience who came in one way and went another. And I don't regret it not one bit to actually find my passion. And being in college, I was able to explore, I was able to be involved on my campus, and at the same time be active outside of campus. So with Albany being a civil rights city and racial injustice and people still fighting issues for such a long time, it just kind of made me feel obligated to be active in some kind of capacity. And I started volunteering in campaigns. And that was like my first experience in leadership on the political side, being active and knocking on doors and encouraging people to vote and folks getting involved. And from there, I grew to really love the outreach part of campaigns. And then seeing election night and you seeing the person that you're volunteering for win, it has made it more reason why, okay, I want to continue to pursue this. And from there, I started working with my first official boss, Congressman Sanford Bishop. He is currently serving in Albany, Georgia. He is a representative from Georgia in the Congress, and he was my mentor. He has been active in my career, and he kind of molded me into taking my talents to another level and helping me shape, if I love what I do, take it further. And I enjoyed working on his campaign in 2012 when he was running for re-election with President Barack Obama. To this day, I mean, I am proud to say my first time voting as a first 18-year-old was for President Barack Obama, and again in 2012. From there, just that momentum as a college student, as a Black woman, and my first time voting, seeing something that we never saw before, just having that momentum. To this day, I love Facebook memories because they remind you when I was just remembering things that was like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But there's a picture of me from that night on election night. I was on my bandmate's back. We're running around campus excited that we had voted for President Barack Obama. And every couple of years when Facebook wants to have a Facebook memory, it's me. And my mom asked me to this day, whose back were you on? I said, that was my bandmate. And we were so excited because election night was happening and adrenaline was rushing. And we ran around campus super excited about what we made for history and what was molding for the future, not knowing that we did that major impact. And from there, I just always been passionate about leading in some form of fashion. And I think it's very important when you find your purpose, when you find your passion, you want to continue to embody it. You want to be able to grow, to find ways to be better. And when I found out I wanted to be an organizer, when I found out I wanted to be a leader in my community, a voice, an organizer, an operative, I did trainings across the country. I got hired right after college graduation. The week I graduated, I got hired from a PR firm based out of Nashville. And my first job was in Omaha, Nebraska. I didn't know anybody in Omaha. My mom was like, you're so far away from your family and friends. You're so far from me. Why are you going? I said, Mom, I'm going because this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And from there, I learned to do political consulting, campaign management, whatever the campaign needed. I always wanted to be an extra pair of hands to help. And that molded my career so much because I just knew one day I'm going to run for office. And when it was time for me to run, I am able to build the best campaign possible. And within those areas, I live in different states and just working on different campaigns. I had to learn that as we continue to build and grow and share stories, like we have to build inclusiveness, we have to build more diversity. And at that time, it wasn't a lot of Black women like me in this particular field. It was pretty much male dominated and white males, Black males in the field. So to see a Black woman in finance or organizing, or a woman of color grasping into this space, it was remarkable to see. And I did it for 10 years. I loved it. When I was fresh out of college, it was so cool to tell my friends, oh, I'm living here. And it was all well. And I ended up finding a home in Virginia, and I stayed there for 5 years. And one thing I loved about Virginia is that Virginia have elections every year. So there's that energy, that passion, the people in the areas and the districts, they never stop being active. They never stop being a voice in their community. So election night is happening, and then 2 weeks later, they're getting ready for state and local elections. And I grew to love it so much. And from there, it just gave me a sense of, this is my legacy. This is, and also sharing this knowledge for women, for people of color, for leaders that are taking charge in our future. I want to be able to share my expertise and to share my experiences with the future. And in 2018, April 15th, I was struck by a car. I was walking to the grocery store like I do every Sunday. Sunday is my relaxed day. After a long campaign week, I want to get groceries, I want to cook. And I live in a neighborhood where it was walking distance in DC, and my neighborhood, everyone is friendly, and it was a regular day. And from there, I did have a near-death experience. I did walk away with torn ligaments, nothing broken. I walked away with my life, and I was in rehab for 4.5 months. And at that time, I was really trying to figure out, why is this happening to me? You know, I'm active in my community. I'm doing good. I make good grades. I graduated from college. Like, why is this happening? And I realized that throughout that time when I was in rehab, and also talking to a therapist and trying to get back to some self, it was like, even bad things happen to good people, but you also have to take it as part of your story. And at one point, I was very depressed. I was sad. I was discouraged. I was like, no one's not going to want to work with me. I'm used to being like this bubbly personality in all of my workspaces. I go to work just kind of like down and out. I couldn't work for a long period of time. But now, 3 years later, I'm using it as a motivator. I'm using it as words of encouragement. And it's one thing that you have to go through and grow through. And that's what happens a lot in times in life experiences. We're going to go through some hard times. Last year was a prime example. We went through probably some of the worst things ever as a country, as households, as individuals. Even right now, still trying to find a bounce back. But we also have to realize it's a part of our testimony. It's a part for us to share with other individuals. And that's what I did throughout the rest of my career. I was using it as a testimony to say, if I can get through something that could have easily taken me away from this world, but it still kept me, there's no limitations. So now I'm living life unapologetic. I'm not apologizing for changing my major because I love what I do. I'm not apologizing for traveling and seeing the world and seeing it in its fullest form. I'm not apologizing for being my best version of myself, not only for me, but for people who are going to come after me. And that's been my approach the last 3 years now, especially because I took so much time molding my career, molding my craft, making sure that I did not have enough time to live life. And now that we're in this phase of going through the purpose and seeing the way where the world is shaping, we need more leaders like you guys. We need more leaders to really be a storyteller, to be a torch for future generations to come. And I'm excited to be here today to talk about how we do that. And the first thing is inclusiveness and defining what it means to you. I would love to hear reactions into the chat, but inclusiveness means all of us. Everyone here tonight has some form of passion and purpose, has some form of drive, what sets their hearts on fire. And that's why we're here, because we're coming together as a community to make good. And it's up to us to really be a driving force to persuade and convince people moving forward in the future why meetings like this matters. When I see the screen, I see different types of people, colors, class, race, sex. It's a beautiful thing to see. Why? Because we're moving and shaping into a whole new generation where we have to be inclusive. And that means having tough conversations, That means everyone coming together and feeling like they belong, because they do. A lot of my work, I work in spaces where we have to do racial equity trainings and racial equity existence to showcase that, the world that we live in is not one race. The world that we live in, politics is not one color. It's not one sex, it's not one class. It's all of us coming together to really fight for democracy and to really fight for our passions. And leaders coming together, we are able to hit important goals. So we're showcasing that when community comes together, results get done. And that we have to keep the conversation going. A lot of my family's background is civil rights. My grandmother was 14 years old when she was shot, marching for her first time at the Million Man March with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And she says it to this day, I wouldn't change it for the world, but her mom brought her to the march. Her mother was an activist and finding some way to really drive into the community, to really showcase what diversity and inclusiveness looks like. And so, as I mentioned before, it's me carrying that torch because I have a bloodline of leading ladies. These are some of my elect ladies in the world, my mom, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and be able to share to be able to hear their stories and to hear how they've gotten involved. It's no surprise when they look at me like, you get it from us. You found something that you were really good at. You get it from your mama. My mom says that all the time. And that is what we're doing as we're changing the culture of moving forward and what we're seeing. And it has no limitations. When we're being inclusive, when we're coming together to meet important goals, it feels good. It feels like you're doing your job as an individual, as an activist, as an advocate, as a leader. And even for someone for the first time, you're kind of hesitant, you're scared, you're unsure, you're still invited to the table. Your voice still needs to be heard in these spaces. And it's hard sometimes, to be honest, because I have to have conversations for individuals who may not look like me, to tell them this is why people like me are upset. This is why leaders are angry. And it's definitely within the last year, we've seen a lot of that. But the great thing about it is that folks are listening. It's taken a long time. And unfortunately, it took different events to happen for folks to listen. And it's not everybody, but the fact that it is a continuing conversation, it speaks volumes. It shows that there are people in the world who may not look like me, who do want to make change, who do want to recognize whether it's privilege, whether it's welfare, but they want to know, like, I want to be a part of the conversation. So we have to include them. And you guys being here today, it shows you taking that next step forward to really make great change. And inclusiveness is a next step to moving our democracy to where it needs to be. I said this the other day on another panel, like, when we're old and gray and when we're sitting on our porch drinking lemonade in the Somerset at night, we should be able to feel happy to know that there are leaders behind us who want to take that torch. And growing up in the South, I had to learn that you have to take the torch behind me. My great grandmother was a maid her whole entire life. She was a nurse. She even breastfed a lot of her bosses who grew up to be, still in that family, the family culture of having the business, the family business, and things of that nature. She taught us that don't be like me, be better. But it also means you have to carry the torch and you have to go out there and do great good. And I've had the privilege to have had 15 years. She died when I was 15 years old. And I was honored to have that time with her because I heard so many stories around that time. Her great-great-grandparents were slaves. So just imagine, like, her being 80, 87, sharing stories about her past and her mom. And it gave me a better sense of how long we've been fighting for just to be included as Black people, as people of color. It's been X amount of years. And it's a great thing to see, but there's also more work to be done. So taking the first step is being here in this space, is for us to come together, to share ideas, to share ways that if you don't like something in your area, I know Adana mentioned about being a choir. If she doesn't like something that's going on in the choir, Adana is a leader to take charge to say, hey, you know what? I don't like what's going on in the choir. I want to address this issue. It's taking the next step and not being silent on something that you know needs to change because you know it feels right. And it goes into the next thing about diversity. It's hand in hand. Diversity is understanding everyone. It's understanding everyone's culture, everyone's background, their sex or their sexual orientation, their physical abilities, their religion, their economic status, their political point of view. It's recognizing that everyone is individual and unique in their own way. I say this a lot, that when I was in band in high school, I moved in Georgia. So band at the time was like, if you saw a Drumline with Nick Cannon, that was Georgia when I first moved there. So for me, coming from choral style in North Carolina to like gritty, hardcore dance breaks, like a full Prince performance in Georgia, it showed me that, wow, I had to learn really quickly that things happen. Like I'm moving into diverse communities. I used to be the only Black girl in my class in Wilmington, North Carolina. As I elevated elementary school, it was me and my best friend, Monica Moses. Her birthday is tomorrow. She was my only pre-K friend. Till this day, we're best friends. And when we was in 5th grade, we were walking across the stage to get our little certificate at 5th grade graduation. It was me and her. Everyone else did not look like us. But where we grew up, our parents didn't want us to go to a school that wasn't going to benefit us for the future. So now, and it's weird that a lot of adults, they get criminal prosecuted for, get us taking their kids to a better school system. And now it's a totally different thing than it was. I'm 31, so do the math, like 20 something years ago, it was a totally different outlook. At that time, it was like, you know what? I want my kids to go to a stronger school district. Diversity is just recognizing that we have to meet people halfway. We have to give people a chance. And as a leader, I as a manager, when I hire staff, when I train staff, and my ultimate goal, my boss would tell me all the time, what do you want? And I would say, I want a diverse team. I want to give young leaders a chance to thrive in something that they love to do and to grow into it. The same opportunities that I had as an undergraduate student. Leaders gave me a chance, and I was a sponge of knowledge. I wanted to do everything. My mom could tell you to this day, Jasmine does not keep still. Jasmine is all over the place. I can't get a hold of her, but she knows what I am trying to do. And when we're talking about diversity, it's like, I am also trying to not only fight for myself, fight for my story, fight for my heritage and my existence, but I am fighting for other people to follow, because I want future people who look like me to be in these same spaces to share their story, to be able to talk about what they're passionate about, what they love, and what they're proud. But we have to invite them. We have to bring them to the table. And as we continue to mold democracy and be able to grow into our future, it is going to take us. It's going to take leaders like yourself. It's going to take millennials. It's going to take people who see what the future looks like when it comes to bringing more people to the table, and to highlight it's okay to be different. It's okay to be unique. It's okay to be your authentic self. And I say this a lot to like my family and friends. No one wants a copy. Anybody can go and get a copy. Anybody can go and print off 10 copies of the same something, or go pick out 10 shirts of the same line, but it takes an original. So you guys here, just embrace your originality, embrace the diversity of being unique, because it's going to take you places that you would never see, that beyond your wildest dreams, but you have to recognize that it's there. And diversity equals real change. It goes hand in hand with inclusiveness. When we realize that there are so many people out here who want to do their part, who want to showcase their talents, who want to be a voice, we have to know that it equals real change when we bring them to join us. It takes all of us. And it leads me to my next bullet of 2020, last year. To this day, 2020, the presidential election is noted as the most historical election of our lifetime when it came to voter turnout within Gen Z and millennials. Not only that, 2020 with the pandemic and COVID, it really willed us in to take a break and to pause on life. We had a lot of folks who unfortunately died from the virus, whether we've known them, whether we saw them on TV, folks sharing their stories. And then on top of that, we had the death of George Floyd. We had the death of Breonna Taylor. We had the death of Ahmaud Arbery. We had the death of other hashtags that didn't get national recognition, but they were in those conversations. In my work at Rock the Vote, I had to have the toughest conversations with my team, because they would come to me and say, Jasmine, I don't understand why police are killing Black people. I don't understand why someone who was going to the store and just want to keep peace, why was he on the ground and had a knee on his neck for a certain period of time? Why would someone come into someone's home when they're just sleeping and get shot? I had to have conversations with people who didn't look like me. And it was probably by far the most difficult part of my work ever. I've worked with some crazy people in the past. I used to brush it off and just still get the work done. I've worked in different environments. It was like beyond. I've been exposed to a lot with my career, some good, some bad, but never in a space like this when one of my leaders who's like 18, 19 years old, who just didn't know. And the first thing they're saying is like, how can I get involved? How can I help? Because what I'm seeing is horrible. And it gave me a pause to realize that, how can I share this with the team? How can I, as their leader, first I had to like deflect for a minute. I had to take my time out to like really just tap out of the world. I cried. I felt like I knew these people. I felt like I just, I couldn't do anything. In order for me to be the best version of myself, I had to take that time. And when I did, I came back to the group. I said, we have to continue to push people to vote. We have to continue the conversations. You have to share your story. You have to, don't be afraid. Everyone has a story to tell. This is the time to share it and to be a listening ear. And I had to do that all summer last year. It sparked a motivation for so many people to get involved, to get active, to be a voice in their communities. And from there, we were mobilizing like never before. College students, I was working with young leaders who had to leave college abruptly. They had no money to get home fast enough. Their parents, they're far away. It was just like chaos. And I just had to be in a place of like, how can we meet people where they are? And I talked about this actually to my significant other all day. He was so irritated with me, like, Jasmine, I don't know. I was writing things down. I said, what can we do? What can we do? He's looking at me like, we don't work at the same job. So I don't know what you need. And it dawned on me, okay, how about we put together something that we can meet people where they are about issues that was happening to them right now. At that time, people didn't know about rent, bills, food. I was in our grocery. I mean, we were all in a situation. Grocery stores are running out of food, running out of toiletries, running out of things. And I went to my former boss and I asked, like, can we put together a series to really meet people about these issues? And we did it. It showed me not only as a activist, because I do this for my job. It's what I do this all the time. But that moment when they told me, yes, we need to do it, we will do it, it showed that I had more power as an individual as well. I didn't come to her as Jasmine, a staff member at one point. I actually came to her as like Jasmine, as someone who was trying to find answers for her family, who's trying to find answers for her classmates, for people that she knows on social media, for organizations that I've worked with, who everyone was facing these problems. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And when we created the series, it was a chance for us to bring people together. And from there, we talked about issues that matter at that time, how to pay student debt, how to pay utilities. We had one around self-care and mental health, giving links for groups that was providing free counseling and free ways, because we were all and we were taking it day by day. Still to this day, a year later, we're still taking it one day at a time. And it made me realize I had to put on my individual hat as Jasmine, and not Jasmine with my job title, but to realize, like, you know what? We're going to keep this conversation going. And it was more about storytelling. So I had a lot of our leaders, we came together via Zoom because we weren't face to face anymore. I had to ask them, what is your story? I want to hear it. I know what's going on with school. I know all the things you tell me. I bonded with them before COVID hit. But I wanted to know, what got you engaged in civic engagement? What got you involved working with us to increase voter turnout? What's your purpose? What are some of the things that you want to do and leave a legacy for? From there, we were able to build a momentum like never before. And then we had individuals who weren't 18 yet, so high schoolers, a lot who are here today, who couldn't vote, but they still asked, how can I get involved? A lot of times people would turn them away, like, oh yeah, you're not old enough, you're not, wait till you're 18, go vote. No, I'm like, you are mobilizing, you have the chance to convince your family, your friends, people that you know can vote. You have the power to do that. And what did they do? They did it. They called me, they'll email me, Miss Jasmine, I did this, I did that. Okay, good. Tell 10 more people. That was how we were able, as Gen Z and millennials, that is how voters were able to increase voter turnout like never before. And it goes back to inclusiveness. We invited everybody to the table. Even if you're not 18 yet, you still have a voice at the polls, and you don't even know it. when I'm sitting here explaining to them, tell your mom, tell your grandmother, tell your coach, tell your tutor, tell your friends, tell your whoever. You had the power to convince them and share. And at that time, it was so much momentum of how to get involved and get active. And that's how the country was able to see that when we all come together, when we bring in people of age and different brackets to come together, we make real change. So what does that mean now? That means that Gen Z and millennials are shaping future elections. They saw that, wow, these young kids are mobilized and energizing. Yeah, you are. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's posting videos, it's out here marching, it's out here protesting, it's young leaders who have been deeply affected with gun violence and climate change. These are leaders who are talking about issues that generations before me are not even thinking about. The fact that we have young leaders as young as 12, 13, 14 years old talking about water crisis and climate change, it is beyond a beautiful thing to see. So why not bring them to the conversation? Why not have them a seat at the table? And one thing that we realized with Gen Z and millennials, as Shirley Chisholm said, if you bring your own folding chair, they don't invite you to the seat at the table. And Gen Z and millennials did just that. They brought their own, you guys, is everyone here. You guys brought yourself to the table and you wanted to be seen and you are seen. So now what does that mean? It means we are realizing, and we have to be open as a community, as a country. We have to be open to know that there are leaders out here who may not have the age requirement to vote, but they are making a stronger impact, that they're making a strong difference, and they're meeting people where they are. They're talking to them about issues that matter to them most. They're giving the person that they're talking to an opportunity to express their problem, their issue, and what happens is magic. It was a beautiful thing to see on election day. I actually cried that day. I woke up, I took a shower, and I sat on an ottoman. And that was probably my first shower, probably like the last 2-3 days, because election time season, I don't ever sleep. I'm up. I'm waiting for election results. I'm just like, what is happening? I'm not going to sleep. Everybody leave me alone. When I saw what was happening, even that day, it was still protests going around. It was still young adults still mobilizing. Oregon was one of the only states who protest 100 days plus straight. So even when the elections was called and the country saw what was happening in Oregon, they were still protesting like, no. And who was it? It was you guys. It was young leaders saying, no, we're not going to take it. Yeah, we got what we needed, but we have to continue doing the work. And that's what the biggest thing about civic engagement is all about. We can get one thing accomplished and it's fun, it's great, we celebrate, cool, we call our friends, we hug, we cry. If you're like me, you run around on campus for a Facebook photo 10 years later to surface up. But the work still continues. And as we see right now, what's happening? We see racial injustice, we see police brutality. We're seeing so many different things that are happening. Today actually makes a week since the verdict during the George Floyd murder. Right now, people are still mobilizing and still energizing to recognize that we still have more work to do. And my biggest thing that I want the leaders on this call and beyond to do, don't stop once you get something accomplished. If there's another problem that's happening, still put that momentum behind that cause to continue doing the work. Civic engagement is all about us as a community, and issues are always going to pop up. They're always going to come, and it's always got to be an opportunity for us to realize, how can we make a difference as a community? How can we make it right? How can we continue to mobilize for the future? And a lot of the work that I do, if someone asks me, why do you do it? I'm not doing it for me. Yes, in a sense, I'm doing it for the future. Because when I'm gone, I want it to be a thing that leaders came together to really create something magical for future leaders to continue to use. That is what our democracy is all about. We're outlining what the future looks like. And being in this particular time, it's okay to be emotionally frustrated. It's okay to emotionally tap out. It's okay to feel drained, to feel agitated and angry. It is okay. You take that time to reflect, and you also take that time to figure out, what can I do to help? That means holding our elected officials accountable, not only on the presidential elections, but local and state. There are a lot of local and state elections that happened this year, and we have to continue that energy. When we come together and when we make great change, it brings more voices to the table. It makes us realize that we're all doing this collectively and we can't do it without each other. My story could be different from Jade. But if I'm listening to Jade's story and Jade listens to my story, together we find some commonalities there to make, okay, let's come up with some great solutions. But we also have to be a listening ear when we share our story as well. And that's what it's all about. So I'm happy to see the energy, because my grandma said that yesterday. We FaceTime once a week. We gossip and just talk about stuff on TV. And she made a statement yesterday, like, Jasmine, when I'm the last button on the coat, I just want y'all to just know y'all have to continue going. And it's been a saying in my family forever. And she told me that the last button on the coat means you're the last sibling in your family, like you're the last one. And she said, when I'm the last one, I want y'all to continue carrying the torch. And so I say that to say, continue doing good work. Whatever you're doing, I don't care if it's you being mad about your school lunch to having a sign up that needs to be taken down, like whatever your passion is, use your voice, because you never know who is watching you. You never know who you're inspiring and who you're influencing. And you guys are the changing force for our future and where we go. And to see the energy that you guys have at a young age and still thriving and still figuring out life and figuring out college and your next steps, just know that you have a tribe that is here to really helping you elevate into your purpose. And I thank you guys for just being here in this moment and hearing me talk and hearing my space. Feel free to drop questions that you may have. But you guys are the game changers, and never apologize for being yourself. It doesn't matter what it is and what you do. Never apologize for being your own self, because everybody can have a copy, but there's only one original. And I'll pass it over to the panel.
Thank you that was beautiful, and I really enjoyed listening. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. You can send it to individually, like people who are co-hosts. Then you can also just put it in the chat and we'll read it. But I have a question for you, Miss Jasmine. Were you involved in any like activism clubs in college or high school, and did that kind of affect what you ended up choosing as your major, or was it just the class that you took?
Yes, so when I was in middle school in North Carolina, before I moved to Georgia, I did my 6th grade year at a middle school before I moved, and it was a Black debate club called Acme. And at that time, our middle school was brand new, so we were like the first. Now I think about it, it's like I'm a lot of the first class in a lot of different high schools and middle schools, but we were the first class at 2001 to go to the school. And from there, we would debate every weekend on civic topics. So we'll have like a tournament with different schools in the area. A lot of those times, unfortunately, we were probably like the only school that had like a predominantly Black club. And so we was debating clubs, or we were debating groups that didn't look like us, but we were able to hit on important topics and just like figure out what that was. It was a great thing. And I think it was one of those things that a lot of people, like Black students like me, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. It looks lame. And I was like, no, like we're out here like winning championships and medals. So like once they saw we're walking around school with the medal on, and we at the table at lunch with the medal, everybody's asking like, what y'all do this weekend? Like, oh, we just won against Thompson Middle School. You want to be a part? And from there, we were able to recruit. But not only that, that was when I was in North Carolina, but my grandparents are pastors. So with them being ministers in the community, whether it was election day, like my grandmother had us out there passing out flyers, or she always wanted us to do something around voting. And she just always wanted us to be informed of what was going on. But their church used to do vacation Bible schools and different things like that, but they also were doing different things in the community. So they'll host like town halls at their church for candidates during election season. And at that time, it was like a free space for folks to come together and, share town halls or like debates. It was always a thing for me to really do. And from there, it kind of trained me to be in my political science clubs in middle school and high school. Even in college, I was like on the board a few years. And even now, like before I moved to California, I was involved as like the outreach chair for the Virginia Young Dems. So I was managing like all statewide efforts with all the local chapters. And before that, I was like a women's caucus chair for the Young Dems. And I was just like always, so that's like a lot of stuff I do in my volunteer time. But even in high school, it was the same thing. I always kind of grew and gravitated to like civic engagement type of clubs. And I love to talk. I don't meet strangers. So when it came to like debate and other things like that, I was never afraid to like really go in on topics that, and at that time, it like, now that I think about it, the topics were so trash. The topics would be about, how do you feel about glitter at prom? I don't care. Now that I'm seeing you guys talk about climate change and police brutality and gun violence, I'm like, why couldn't we talk about this when I was in school? So it's like, it was one of those things that it shaped me to be bold to even address topics to discuss at the debates or at different things. So I got involved very, very young, but I think that's also giving you a platform to like kind of enhance your skill set too. So when you're like debate preps and public speaking, especially if you're in your field or in college or even at high school, like you guys are moderators. So if you guys are doing this more than one, it's kind of giving you skill sets to enhance and to kind of grow into it. But don't be afraid to do it. But that was my niche. Like I want to do everything. And I was a popular person, but I hung out with everybody. My mom to this day talks about how everybody was at my house. We had breakfast. We just did a whole bunch of stuff, like band people. Like we just had our house was the party house, but it was a good thing. It was like all of us coming together to just have fun. And I've been that way since I was young, but it really taught me to really open up, because in some retrospect, I am kind of shy when it comes to like my personal feelings. I'm more of the type, like, I want to make sure my mom is okay, my sister, my family. But when it comes to me asking me how I'm okay, I really you don't have to worry about it. But it taught me too, like, it's okay for you to kind of be a little bit vulnerable and your passion and your truths too. So that's just a little spill about my upbringing. But we always had and my family is a political family. That was a conversational piece at dinner, Thanksgiving, Christmas, open up gifts. My dad, my papa or my grandfather, he would tell me like, if I didn't know a question, like I would have to wait third to open up gifts for Christmas if I didn't know like a political question from the night before. I'm like, man, like you're messing up my chances for these gifts right now. But that was his way too. Like I think a lot of my family saw what I was passionate about and they were testing me to see how much I could take it. And to this day, I really do appreciate it. So I hope that answers your question. I know it was kind of winded, but being involved in, and then it, like I said, it just goes back to like when you know early on what you want to do, ultimately you want to get involved in things that are going to enhance and like, you're building coalitions, you're meeting friends, you're kind of growing into a space that you love to do. I love what I do. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Oh, I guess we have a question. So someone in the chat said, you clearly put so much time and work into your career and making change. which I totally agree with. How do you make sure that you don't overwork yourself to the point of physical or mental exhaustion and maintain time for yourself and loved ones?
Honestly, this is probably last year was probably the first time. Well, I take that back. My accident in 2018 was the first time that I had to really just like, I couldn't do it. And I think from there, because I had to spend a lot of time trying to recuperate and I was kind of in a different space in my life, that moment taught me to really take time for myself. And so from there, it's like I would turn my phone off at a certain time at night, or I went back to like reading, which I love to read. And I made that like a thing this year as far as like my New Year's things to do. Um, but also realizing that my family is definitely important. And at one point I did miss everything. I missed baby showers, weddings, birthday parties. And at one point it sucked because I was like, oh, I'm missing time with my family and friends. And at the same time, my family and friends knew what I was loving to do, but I did make a balance to say, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. And now me living in California, it's also giving me a chance to like, I can't pick and choose everything too, because I'm not hopping on a plane every week to go back to the East Coast where a lot of my family reside between North Carolina and Georgia. So I had to really take some self-care moments. And I'm also encouraging you guys to do that too. My self-care routine has been a nice hot bubble bath with some good music and some good candles. And I just like, I turned my second bathroom into a whole spa. And that's like my little sanctuary. I love it. I actually asked my boyfriend the other day, I said, can you bring me some water? And when he came in, he said, I didn't realize you just did all of this. I was like, it is my me time. And it just makes you, it's like a refresh button and it's like a rejuvenation that you need to continue doing the great work. But I definitely had to make it a balance. And now that I'm older, I'm also realizing too, it was fun when I was fresh out of college. Like I was out of a suitcase, I traveled for work. It was fun. It was fun. Then I realized I have all these shoes, all these clothes, and nowhere to put them. Like I need to get an apartment. Like I'm tired of being in hotels and tired of like, so I had to find some balance. And once, at least 3 times a week, I find that balance, whether I'm reading a book, whether I journal, whether I take my bath. And like I also make time to spend more time with my family. And I know it's been a little bit hard the last year or so, but especially like the last 3 years, because I had the notion of, I have another chance of life. So now I want to be able to spend more time with my family and my friends and not feel like I have to just do it all. And I think with me being the oldest sibling too, it was like me trying to be an example for my sister and trying to be the oldest grandchild out of 5. And it was all of that. And now I'm just like, everyone has to go for what they know and just do what they do. But that's my free time. Sundays is my R&B session. I run around the house and just play music. It's loud and I have a good time. I cook and I just find ways to really just balance out, and I also turn off the TV. As much as I love the work that I do, and I'm always want to be up to date of what's going on with the news, I do turn it off and tune it out because it can be a lot sometimes, and it helps me kind of balance it out. So, and I work out. I actually worked out today, and it's been probably like a month, so I'm getting back to that too, so I can like be summer goals for the summer.
Thank you for all those suggestions. Love to hear everything. I love listening to what everyone does to decompress and things like that. I personally have a question. What advice can you give for like some young leaders who like to develop some of their capabilities to organize and motivate their peers to become civically engaged to the maybe not quite to the extent that the leader themselves are, but just to kind of get that sense of urgency and motivating factors? What do you think that young leaders can do?
Definitely volunteer. I think and it could be a volunteer of like whatever you're passionate about. I think the great thing about volunteering is at your own pace, like your own schedule. If you commit an hour or 30 minutes, I think whatever you're volunteering to or what cause, they're going to appreciate you for just doing it anyway. So I think volunteering is definitely one. And as I mentioned before, like sharing your story. Like if you know, Taylor, if you're talking to your friends, you guys are having lunch and, you know, just random conversations, and you know, you guys are talking about something that's obviously important, but folks don't really want to know, they don't know where to start. Like, just, you know, invite them to the conversation. And I learned, out of all my friends, I am the one that they'll call about elections or call about what's happening. My grandmother was talking to me yesterday about Andre Brown from Elizabeth City who got shot, and she said, "Did you see the ruckus on TV?" I'm like, "Yes, grandma." So it's one of those things that, of course, like you will always be the one. But one thing I also learned, to not pressure or force it, like let it come naturally. Because if you have someone who is not really civically engaged, or they want to kind of figure it out but not really be involved, you kind of want to make them feel comfortable to be in a space. And I think if you say to them, hey, you know, you could volunteer for 30 minutes or an hour on the weekend or on a weekday, whatever is flexible for your schedule, it just makes them be open to like, oh, I could really do this because it's a volunteer thing. And as we continue to move forward with like elections and campaigns, super volunteers, it's a family. It's like people coming together, really fighting for a great cause and great good. And they're all donating their time, but they're doing it at their own pace. And that's why they keep coming back. They just know they're not being forced, because Taylor may be so passionate. At least I know, as Taylor's friend, I can just come at my own leisure, but she sees me and I want her to know that I'm here, but I know I'm not being pressured. But volunteer, and like I said, find whatever cause it is. There's so many organizations, so many things are happening right now, and coalitions continue to build as we continue to move forward with civic engagement. So there's always an area to volunteer. You got to just know what you want to do, and just simply Google it or just look it up. Or even if you guys have chapters at your high school levels, you know, getting involved in that kind of way as a volunteer.
We have another question. Besides scouting and church activities, what are some other good examples of civic engagement activities for elementary age kids?
That's a great question. As I mentioned, when I was in elementary school, my grandmother had us um, volunteer like at the polls, just to help pass out stuff, uh, not ballots, but like literature, and things of that nature. I think their Cobblestone is a magazine that is online. And one thing actually did a interview with them last year, and one thing I loved about them is because they were like elementary to like middle school audience, and they would have like on their I think it's like a paperback. I don't think they do anything online, but there was like ways for young students to get involved, and kids of that age. Like, I'm sure that there's other groups or other outlets that do things like that. And one thing I learned even last year that I love to see, like a lot of networks on television, whether it's Disney or Nickelodeon, particularly Nickelodeon, they're doing more things around civic engagement for like younger kids that age that I find to be very helpful. Um, your local chapters, like of whatever civic engagement groups that you would like to be a part of, a lot of them do have a like an umbrella of outreach for like younger than Gen Z folks, like middle school or elementary school. And I think whatever you guys would like to do as like a family, whatever you're passionate about, is trying to figure out. And if they don't, I also would highlight, you should approach them to say, hey, you know, I have my 8-year-old son and daughter wants to be involved, and they can't because of their age. Like, what are you opening? I think a lot of times too, it's accountability for these groups. The same way that we can outreach one particular audience, we also want to shape young leaders. And I think anything that's happening on like at the elementary level with school, like any clubs, to get involved there. I find now I'm trying to think. When I was in school, it was DARE at the time. I actually was a DARE winner, and I'm very proud of that because I had to give a speech at my 5th grade graduation. But I know there are a lot of other groups that they're molding it, and unfortunately, I know that it's a slower train than it is millennials and Gen Z groups. Like we're seeing more and more of those building every day. I will also just highlight for like elementary schools in the area to start highlighting the next future of leaders too, and kind of molding them that way. But those are some of the things I would suggest. And like I mentioned, the biggest thing, there's local chapters that are happening, whether it's like any civic engagement groups, ask them like, is there something for my kids, that they can do at that age? And I think that would be very helpful for them to succeed, and at least grow into like the roles of them being their best potential in the civic groups.
I actually had a question. So, along with the other students here, like student moderators and other people here, I'm someone really interested in youth activism and politics. And specifically, I'm a part of this organization, a nonpartisan youth-led organization called The Polling Place, and basically a group of about 100 students across the country working to research candidates, especially local candidates, and really support informed voting. But as like youth, we're not very professionally experienced. So as someone who is interested in political organizing, I wanted to know if you had specific advice for youth leading the way on those kinds of issues.
Yeah, I would definitely reach out to like your local party that's there, because a lot of those chapters, they do have an umbrella for younger outreach or younger volunteers. Excuse me, with me being involved with my chapters in the past, it was great because we were able to have our own meetings and our own ways to like outreach and organize, as opposed to like the general body meetings. So there are local chapters within like parties or any groups that have an umbrella for younger volunteers. And also anything that you're interested in, whether it's like group or advocacy, there's always a volunteer form on their website. A lot of times, if you volunteer, the follow will be a phone call, and you can kind of express like what you're looking to do, and that coordinator should be able to direct you with like the right follow up, like inviting you to a meeting coming up or anything like that. But I think that's the start. And I know like a lot of organizations like Head Count, Rock the Vote, When We All Vote, these are a lot of groups now that are mobilizing young leaders, and it's also a way for you to sign up and like see their calendar of events to see what's happening in the area or virtually right now. And that's how you would definitely be able to like join and be a part of the conversation. But there are a lot of groups I know, like for leaders who, or especially women who want to run for office, like Emily's List or Emerge America, they have state chapters. So like, even though it's like the national scale, the state level chapters are helpful to help you plug into like the organizations. And a lot of times on the info page on a lot of orgs websites, you can like request an organizer to come speak at your school or come speak at an event. And that's also helpful because the organizer can come and talk to you face to face or virtually to introduce how you can be a part of their cause and how you can be a part of their group. And it's kind of providing you ways to join. I think right now, because we are virtually, it's probably a little bit easier and flexible as opposed to going to an in-person meeting, but having virtual things is also great. And yeah, I think I would suggest you start from there, like highlight that it might be chapter organizations across the state or across the nation, but there are local chapters that are doing it to kind of give you a hands-on person to get involved.
I have another question that's kind of more like logistically, like what you are doing when it's not an election year, like either to prepare for the election or for an upcoming election. Like, do you like try to do more like informing people about the candidates, or what does some of the preparation look like?
A lot of it, I do consulting. So when I'm not working on a campaign, I am working with like either a group or a particular candidate for their campaign. In my background, I help candidates raise money for their campaign, or image consulting, or debate prep. So certain things it's like a candidate needs to succeed. And when I'm not working in that, I'm a volunteer. So I also dedicate my time to help out. Um, Before I was working during the presidential elections, a lot of my work was program building with coalitions within the state of Virginia. So we would come together to help like racial justice and helping candidates with different things and like training them and helping in those aspects. So that's pretty much what I do. When I'm not like in campaign mode, I will probably like watch a favorite TV show and get caught up on stuff that I'm missing. And thank you, Taylor, because you obviously you're showing me that I don't really get out of the campaign mode. you kind of put me on blast for me to realize I might need to step back. But that's some of the things that I do as an individual. And also for any upcoming like town halls. I recently moved to Los Angeles, so anything that's happening like virtually, I want to go and just kind of see what's going on. Not trying to work the event, not trying to just go in there as a resident and to see what's happening. But those are some of the things that I do. And after this, I'm going to make an agenda because you called me out on it to do some stuff outside of campaign stuff. So thank you, Taylor.
Okay, another question. You have traveled a long journey to be the individual you are today. And as far as you've said, you have always been somewhat outgoing. Do you have any tips for young individuals to build the confidence and self esteem that being a leader requires?
Yes. I think a lot of times I was always a personality or like a people person, but I think between my sister and myself, my mom always felt the need to kind of worry about me, if that makes sense. She always felt like Jasmine's my baby. I feel like she's not tough enough. She may not. But my sister is like total opposite. We're 4 years apart. She's total opposite of me. um I had to realize that with me traveling so much from my work in the past, I had the chance, and then I had to like change so much. So I might meet friends here and then have to go to a whole nother level, another area, and meet a whole new set of people there. I feel like that was a great balance because I was able to meet different people and like having them kind of expose me to more stuff and not being afraid of it. But I would say for you to build confidence, funny story, I ran for Miss Georgia USA twice. My goal was to compete and win Miss USA, but I didn't win. But the one thing I learned in that experience was for me to it brought a lot of confidence within me. And politically, I felt like some things was not okay, but I walked away having like a stronger self-esteem. My mom always kept us active in different things. Like I mentioned, I was in band, I did dance. Like I was always just doing something to meet new people um and to gravitate to like life experiences and things of that nature. So for young leaders, I journal a lot, and I feel like that's a outlet for me to kind of express the things that I'm feeling. And I always kind of read it back to myself when I get done to see like how am I thinking and what expressing my feelings that way. But definitely you just not being don't apologize for being yourself. If you're quiet, if you're to yourself, it's okay too. My boyfriend's an introvert. He does not like people. I have to convince him sometimes to like, let's go out, let's do dinner, let's do it. but then I realized he is content being where he's at. And I realize that now, like, it is totally okay. I am not going to continue to force something on him that he is not comfortable to do. And if he is, he wants me to hold his hand the whole entire way. But I had to realize that early on as well. When someone is who they are, it's not our job to try to change them in the sense of like their inner personality or their confidence. You just want to just give them a boost. And I think we live in a world right now that everyone needs a little bit of uplift. Everyone needs a little bit of encouragement, a virtual hug, a virtual hand clap is to say, hey, you got it. A lot of it too, growing up with my grandparents being ministers and like my family always being like vocal voices, they always kind of gave us words of encouragement. They always kind of gave us some positive energy and just like positive words of wisdom. And whether it was small or big, it made a big difference in for me to do. And like I said, my mom never stood shy for us to like whatever we wanted to do. Like my sister and I had a manicure pedicure business. It didn't last. We probably had 2 clients and it didn't last. But it showed us, like, I was maybe 11 years old and she was 7. And it taught us entrepreneurship at a young age. And we had 2 loyal clients to come to us. Now I laugh about it. I was like, why was she so invested in us to do her nails and feet? But it gave us a outlet to like explore that, hey, we could do this. Even if we was messing up her toes and the polish was trash and we were just scribbling outside the lines, she trusted us to, to enhance our ability. So I think a lot of that too is us. And it's important for you to kind of give that same courtesy back to people. So like we have younger siblings or younger cousins who kind of feel that way too, like kind of open that door for them to like embrace it and not be shy. But definitely take charge. If I didn't learn anything about my accident, I learned the ultimate thing is live life out loud, live it unapologetic, and do everything that you want to do, because you only have one life to live and you just don't want to regret anything. But I would just say, take your time to find out what you want and just don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, because some of those things, it enhances you as an individual. I know a lot of you guys are graduating soon. So when you go off to college, that's going to be a big first step for you, like being away from home, being away from like mommy doing laundry and cooking and doing things, and it's all like you just being able to like grab hold to your own confidence to explore things you want to do. So those are some of my tips. I can't think of anything else with that, but I would definitely say don't be afraid to just take charge. Don't be afraid to, even if you mess up, at least you tried. And that's all that you can do with the learning process.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now. But if there are no more questions, thank you so much for all of you for being here this evening, especially Jasmine. I really empathized with your story. A lot of the stuff kind of applies to my life as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and be part of the speaker series. Also, thank you to the other student panelists, Jade and Taylor. And more information will be out on the May speaker series. Be on the lookout for information for May. And then also May is Mental Health Awareness Month and Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So yeah, that's it. I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, students.